Well, after 20 episodes, the reveal of Savitar has finally been unveiled, but is the payoff satisfying and was it worth the wait? Let's find out. Hey guys, remember The Flash, Season 3, Episode 20, I know who you are, and guys, I was definitely real looking forward to this episode, even though I have not been that high on The Flash, as you guys know this season. I was interested in this episode because finally, after so many episodes, I knew we were finally going to get that Savitar reveal, and no matter who it was, I was just happy that we were finally going to get it. It's very delayed, and they've kept prolonging it, and I think we should have gotten this like 5 episodes ago, but it's fine. At least we finally got the reveal. And let me just say, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I didn't hate this episode. I really didn't. In fact, I actually thought this is one of the stronger episodes we've had in quite a while. I actually really enjoyed this episode. I thought we had a solid setup here. I don't necessarily know if we needed to do this Savitar reveal in this episode. Like, it felt like it was just kind of like tacked on. Like, they knew the fans wanted it, so they gave it to them. And the Savitar reveal in general, I don't really know how to feel about. I'm interested in seeing where it's going to go. But in general, let's just get into this episode, which right off the bat, I thought just start up very abruptly. We see Barry, he faces Savitar, and says that he knows who he is, and for me, that really was only there so that way the creators could be like, alright, shut up now, we know you've been waiting for the Savitar reveal, well, it's gonna happen in this episode, and it didn't really add anything by seeing the 16 hours early. Like, I really didn't need to know that was gonna happen, but Joe and Cece return to the West House after a marathon, and I was happy to see Cece was back in the picture. It seems that they've forgotten about her, but I'm glad to see that she was back in this episode, and they kiss, and Cecile casually says that she loves him, and she apologizes, and Joe kind of freezes up. He doesn't really know how to react to it, and he takes a call from Barry. He tells Cecile that he has to head out, and at the lab, Barry tells the others what he's learned about physicist Tracey Brand. As we know, Tracey is kind of the key to stopping Savitar, because in 4 years, she's going to invent the technology that will trap Savitar in the Speed Force, and they start tracking her down, and Julian wonders why they're not looking for Caitlin. Obviously, that's what they said they would do. Why aren't they focused on that? He figures they should stop her from teaming up with Savitar, and complains that no one is really doing anything, and I like that Julian's getting angry. Like, he wants Caitlin to go back to her normal form, and he wants to make sure that she doesn't team up with Savitar. So Cisco points out they're working 24/7 to find her, and says that Julian shouldn't have ripped the necklace off and let her transform. I mean, it's really his fault that all that went down. I mean, it really was not the smartest move on Julian's part, but now they kind of have to deal with it. So Cisco gets a hit on Tracey. Currently, she's a grad student, and he, HR, and Barry go to the university. Barry smells something burning in the lab. They go in with a fire extinguisher, and Tracey complains that she's burning her work, and she says that none of her work works, actually. And I actually really like this character of Tracey. I thought she brought just this really nice, just fun, bubbly persona to the role. She was a little bit geeky. She kind of reminded me of Patty Spivot a little bit, and I've been missing a character like that for a while. I think just her and Barry's relationship was just a lot of fun to watch, and I really do miss her on the show, so I'm glad to see we have a character like that back here. I really did like her here, and she's heading to Big Belly Burger to get a job, and explains that her professor said it was a waste of time, and HR tells her not to waste her mind making finger chips, and I will definitely say, in terms of character, this was HR's best episode. Like, without a doubt, if I really had to pick one, this to me was HR's best episode, and it's only because I feel they haven't really utilized the character that well. Sure, he's funny, but that's really all they've used him for. They've only really used him for comedic relief, and this is really the first episode where it really seems like HR is there for more than comic relief. Like, he actually did have a genuine storyline. I was happy to see they did that, but Barry recites her future work. Tracey points out she hasn't shredded her work with anyone yet, and like I said, I thought it was overall a very good introduction to this character. I'm very interested in seeing where she's going to go. Then bursts in, she fires a cold blast at Tracey, and Barry moves Tracey out of the way. He has HR get Tracey out of the way, and the next ice blast sends him flying. Cisco prepares to vibe her, but Frost blasts him back as well, and Barry then lights a Bunsen burn to drive her off and make sure that Cisco is okay. And I gotta say, I'm really loving what we're getting to Frost here, because look, I've always really liked Danielle Panabaker. I think she's great, but it should be said that Caitlin, I think, has always been the most underutilized character. Like, she's kind of always been confined to either either a romantic subplot or something involving that, this has been her strongest season. I think the Killer Frost stuff has been great the entire season. It's been the only consistently great element of this season, in my opinion. And I really like what they did with her here. She's actually gone. They realize that she's working with Savitar, and I like they came to that realization here. So at the police station, Tracey works with the sketch artist to work up a pic of Frost, and Joe takes it to put out an APB, and he talks to Barry privately, and Barry admits that he didn't think that Frost and Savitar would team up so soon. Like, why would that happen, now? So, just as Cecile comes in, she asks what they're talking about. Joe says that there was a meta attack at the university, and asks to talk to Joe privately, so she asks if they're good after what she said. Joe assures her they're fine, and once the DA leaves, Barry asks Joe if he wants to talk. Joe doesn't, and Tracey prepares to leave. Barry suggests she stay with Joe, and Joe agrees, but she insists it was just a random attack, and she then leaves. So Joe and Barry figure that they need to keep an eye on her, just to make sure that she'll stay there, and that night, Frost tells Savitar that Tracey escaped. He asks if Caitlin is still inside of her, undermining her intentions, and points out that Frost hasn't killed anyone yet, and obviously he needs her to do so. So he tells her to kill the woman so that they can be gods, and HR then finds Tracey at Jitter's bus station and buys a coffee for her, and she recognizes him and wonders if the GCPD sent him to check on her, and HR says that he and his team are interested in her work, and Cisco briefs him over the earbud, reciting the details, and Julian wonders if HR is trying to flirt with Tracey, and he points out that he saw Cisco and Frost on the security footage they wiped to protect her identity, and he notes that Cisco had a clear shot and didn't take it, and Cisco refuses to discuss it. Like, he obviously could have done something to save Caitlin, but he didn't take that chance, and he checks in with Barry and Joe outside running surveillance, and Joe finally misses Cecile caught him off guard, and he didn't think that they were there yet. Like, he knew obviously that they were in a relationship, but he didn't think they were in the I love you stage. And I mean, it definitely is a whole other ball game for when a couple does finally say I love you. I mean, it definitely does change a lot. Like, this is now the person you're committed to, and Joe didn't really realize they were there yet. So he doesn't figure it's the right time to get involved with someone he'd have to lie to, and Barry advised him to tell Cecile the truth. And surprisingly, this was a lot more subtle and not nearly as, I think, overbearing as I think it could have been. This was honestly a very well done arc. I like the way they did this story, because Joe, in general, hasn't always had the best luck when it comes to relationships, but I really like what they did with him here. I like that it doesn't, there's only so many pep talks you can do with Barry. It's fine that they use him for that, but I like that he had something beyond that in this episode. I like what they did with him here. So Tracey and HR grab a table. She explains she's been studying speedsters, and she thinks the trail that they leave comes from sort of dimension, and HR suggests the name Speed Force, and Tracey suggests she might have a way to control it. The university wouldn't fund the research, and she wonders why HR is so interested in it, and he assures her that she's no crackpot. Just as his coffee freezes solid, he gets her outside, calls for help, and just as Frost fires an icicle at Tracey, as we know, she's trying to kill Tracey in this episode, Flash speeds in, he catches it, Frost steps forward, HR gets Tracey away, and Frost speeds off after Tracey on an ice ramp, and Flash tells Cisco to knock her out when he lures her back, speeds after her, she starts blasting civilians to distract the pursuing Flash, he managed to drive her back, and Vi prepares to knock her out, Flash arrives, tells him to do it, and memories of his friend Caitlin then start to go through his mind, because he knows deep down this is Caitlin Frost, like, this is someone that is his best friend, and Frost then blasts a paralyzed Vibe. Flash takes the blast meant for his friend and is knocked out because he knows obviously what's going to happen to Cisco, and I like that Barry is trying to prevent that, but Frost then stabs Flash in the left leg to keep him from following her, and this is one of the best parts of the episode. All the scenes with Killer Frost were so great here. I really love what we got here, and it really is showing how Barry is actually trying to prevent a lot of what went down in that future from happening. The Frost is teamed up with Savitar, and Tracey creates the technology to trap him, so she realizes that her theories about the Speed Force are actually correct, and shows her the holographic data file from 2024. Flash asks her to build the trap now, and they warn her that if she doesn't, then someone important to them will in fact die. So Tracey excuses herself, HR says that he'll go after her. Obviously, this is a lot of information to just, plummet on someone. It's crazy to think about it. I mean, there's all kinds of things going through her head right now, and I like that. I like that we have a character that doesn't know about, who Barry really is and doesn't know who Cisco really is. Like, she doesn't have ties to them. We haven't really seen that in a while. Sure, we kind of did with Julian, but he quickly knew what was going on. Tracey very much reminds us of like a season 1 character, and I like that. I like how normal Tracey really is right now, at least. So she realizes, basically, we see later Julian visits Cisco in his workshop, tells him that HR talked Tracey into helping them, and he then asks Cisco why he couldn't attack Killer Frost. So Cisco finally says he's afraid of killing his best friend by accident, and this was actually a really well done arc for Cisco. I really like what they did with him here, that this is something the show, I think, is really understated, his friendship with Caitlyn. It was definitely a big element, I think, in the first 2 seasons, but not really. We definitely got something of it in this 3rd one, but we don't see a lot of it. Like, it's definitely something that's not shown as much as it should, and I thought this was a really well done arc. He's obviously terrified of killing Caitlyn. I mean, this is his best friend, and he'd rather die than do that. So Barry talks to Joe and asks if he's told Cecile about them, and Joe explains that she is the only really normal thing in his life right now, and if he tells her about them, then it's no longer normal, and he wants to keep that normality there, and if he tells her about all the stuff going on, it's just going to diminish a lot of that. So Barry says there's no such thing as normal, and love is the only thing that will get them through if HR runs and says that Tracey is gone. So Barry speeds through all of Tracey's potential locations, but he doesn't find her. HR figures that she's okay and something happened to her, suggests they check the data file. They find photos of her at a park, and HR realizes where she is. So he approaches Tracey. She's sitting in the park looking at a statue of Galileo. He brings her a coffee, and she apologizes for running off. She explains she used it to find the fact that people thought Galileo was a crackpot comforting because people think the same of her, and she admits that she was unnerved by everything she saw in the data file and figures that HR is a genius. And this is really the first person to really credit HR for what he did, and that's why I think this arc was so strong from him. As we know, throughout the season, we've seen HR, he definitely is very intelligent, and he has a lot of ideas of what he really wants to do, like him wanting to build that museum and make it public, or him having all these great ideas and everyone just kind of not shutting him down, but just kind of ignoring it. Tracey is really the first person to really, indulge in a lot of this stuff and really engross herself in HR's, creative abilities and actually praise him for that. And he admits that he isn't, but assures her that she can defeat Savitar if she believes in herself. And he tells her that for what it's worth, he already does. And Joe's at home when Cecile comes by. She wonders what's going on. Joe says that he's worried that things will change, and what she said showed him where he was in their relationship. He suggests they stop seeing each other, and I was kind of upset about this. I'm like, really? You just have this here just for them to break up? And at this point, I was not happy with the way this was going. Obviously, she's very shocked. She tells him that she thought being together was the best thing for the both of them. She says that she'll see him around the station, and she leaves. However, there's a knock at the door seconds later, and Frost is there holding an ice dagger to Cecile's throat, and Frost tells her to bring Tracey to the address. She'll give him in an hour, or she'll just straight up kill Cecile. And when Joe tries to go after her, Frost blasts him down and leaves, and this is really when we get to the very thrilling climax within this episode. So at Star Labs, Joe tells the others what happened. Julian refuses to let Frost kill someone because he just can't think of her possibly doing that. As we know, Savitar said that she hadn't do that. Barry insists that no one will die, and Frost texts the address at an old factory. Barry says he has a plan, and as Cisco heads down the hallway, Julian approaches him, tells Cisco he can control his power, and he figures that Cisco's powers come from love. And if Cisco can stop Frost, then they will be able to save her. So Tracey's working in the lab, HR comes in and asks her to do something really dangerous. And at the factory, we get this incredible scene where Cecile is tied up to a chair. Joe, Flash, and Tracey arrive. Frost steps out to say that she intends to kill Tracey, and she wants this to be her first kill, to prove to Savitar that she is capable of doing such a thing. So Flash says that Savitar is just a man that is using Killer Frost, and she echoes his words about how they protect each other, and she explains that Savitar told her everything that Flash would say, and she's literally saying the same exact thing that he would, which is just really creepy, and that's why Savitar is always one step ahead of them. So Frost knows that Vibe is in the rafters. She triggers a bomb there. He creates a breach to break his fall, and Frost then freezes Joe's gun. Flash then takes the blast meant for Tracey. Frost frees him to the floor. However, Vibe blasts her down, says it's over. Frost then gets up, goes after him. The two of them match their powers against each other. He managed to push past her resistance and knocks her out just as Flash breaks free. Vibe runs to kill Frost and takes a blood sample from her, and that entire scene, I thought, was so well done. Savitar speeds in, knocks Vibe down, says that his ascension is nearly at time. He tells Flash that as he rises, Flash will fall, picks up Killer Frost, and speeds off. And I like that they didn't beat Killer Frost, but at the same time, no one actually got killed. And I thought that entire scene was just so well done. It really did show how Barry did stay true to his word. But Killer Frost is a lot more powerful than they thought she was, and I just thought that entire scene was just really well handled. So, back at Star Labs, Cisco realized that Savitar knows precisely what is going on, as if Savitar was actually there. I mean, it's really weird to think about. And Iris wonders why Savitar rescued Frost instead of killing Cisco, and Julian then examines the blood sample, says that it could be the cure to reverse engineering a cure. So, HR then finds Tracey examining the shard from Savitar's armor. He says that he wants to make sure that she doesn't get hurt, and Tracey says she thinks that Savitar's armor is made out of strange metal. He needs the suit to negate the energy he builds up when speeding, and figures that if they can create a device to harness the power and use against Savitar entrapment in the Speed Force, HR figures that she's a genius and will stay with them, and that his future is changing. And I really like these two. I hope they actually do work out, because I really am liking what we're seeing of Tracey and HR thus far. I actually really do like these two as a couple. So we then get a great scene with Joe, where I thought Joe and Cecile was going to be done. Like, I didn't think we were going to get any more here. But surprisingly, the show actually does give us a follow-up scene, where he asks Cecile to see him in his office. He tells her that he froze when she said that she loved him, and warns that his love comes with a lot of baggage, and he tells her he's done with the self-doubt, and he's actually done with his marriage. Like, he's ready to move on from Francine, and says that he loves her with all of his heart, and he apologized for being dishonest with her, promises there will be no secrets between them. They kiss, and then he tells her about the speedsters in his life. Even though he didn't want her to get involved, he just kind of had to lead her on as to what was going on, and I really like this. I like that Joe did, in fact, tell her the truth. Like, he wasn't hiding things from her. That's something Flash has always had a problem with, where all these characters have to keep a million secrets from each other. I like that for once we actually did get to see someone actually, you know, just tell the truth and actually let someone in on what's going on. I like that Joe actually was honest with Cecile here. Like, he realized that they couldn't hide anything from each other, and I thought that really did add to the overall pathos of the scene. I really did enjoy this overall. So later, Joe returns home. He finds Barry, Wally, and Iris waiting for him. He says he told Cecile everything. She promised not to tell anyone, and Joe tells them that love made the difference, and Barry gets an idea, and he remembers everything he's seen of how Savitar has always been one step ahead of them, and Julian Savitar is saying that he is future Flash, and he starts to put together what actually could be going on here, and then we get the reveal we've all been waiting for, where we finally see Flash. He speeds off True Street. He yells to Savitar that he's there. Savitar arrives, and Flash tells him he knows who he is, and he figures that everything about Savitar is about time, and he knows everything about all of them. He figures that Savitar knows how to use their love against them, and they can't stop him because he was there. He lived it when he was Barry, and Savitar moves his armor to reveal he's actually the future Barry, to really no one's surprise, but that is the way this episode ends. Really interesting stuff overall, but let's just talk about this and where I really think this is going to go for the rest of the season. So, wow, I mean, finally, it's about time, guys, really. I am so happy that we finally have the reveal of Savitar. We don't have to worry about it anymore, but let's talk about this, because was this exactly shocking? No, it wasn't shocking. Was it the direction I thought they were going in? No, I'm not going to say I think it was the right direction for the show to go, because it's not. I don't think that's initially what they wanted to do. To me, this did seem kind of lazy, like they just kind of did it. But it does kind of make a little bit more sense thinking about it. As we know, the real villain of this season has been Barry's stupidity, and how he always seems to, care too much about others and wanting to change things, and by changing things, it always seems to have some sort of ripple effect, whether it be Flashpoint, whether it be the future. It always seems to bite Barry in the ass, and I guess this is another example of that. But I really thought the show was heading towards Wally being Savitar. Like, I really thought that's what they were trying to do here. And I still kind of wish they did that, because it would have made his character feel a lot more essential. And maybe it would have sold me more on Keenan Lonsdale. Again, I don't think he's the greatest actor in the world, but I do think he could have played a pretty good villain. But overall, I am definitely interested in seeing where this is going to go, because now that Barry is to fight against himself, that definitely is a very different type of direction than the show has done. And I do like that it's not Julian. Like, I was hoping it would not be Julian, because that would just be too predictable. And sure, millions of people have guessed that, oh, Barry is, Savitar. But honestly, when it comes down to it, the show has prolonged this for so long that I don't think they couldn't have made this predictable. Like, I feel like there was no way they couldn't have made this, shocking. Maybe a couple episodes ago they could have, but because they've waited so long, I think that's why we thought about. Like, I think all these fan theories came out and things like that because they just waited way too long for this reveal to happen. Aside from that, though, I will admit, I don't think this was the episode that revealed Savitar. I really don't, because everything else going on here was extremely well done. I really did like the inclusion of Tracey. I actually think she actually brings a lot to the cast, and also brings a lot to HR specifically. HR is a character that I've loved from the beginning. I think, honestly, he might be my favorite of the three. Look, I'll always love Reverse Flash. I think that he was fantastic on the show. I think Tom Cavanaugh absolutely killed it. In terms of character, though, HR is by far my favorite. I mean, he's the one you feel the most sympathy for. The other two were kind of assholes, and the other one was just kind of a badass. But this one, you just really feel bad for him. I mean, he does have a lot of great ideas, and a lot of it has really gone unnoticed by most of the team, and they really haven't paid much attention to him. And here comes Tracey, who finally seems to acknowledge it, and she's actually taking a lot of pride in what he does. And I like that she is also very smart, and I really do want to see these two work together. And I really hope this means that HR moving forward will stay on the show. I really do like Tracey. I hope that she does become a big part of this show, if not just for these 3 episodes. I hope she stays on past that, because honestly, I think we're gonna get Killer Frost for a long time. I don't see Killer Frost just ending after this season. I know, obviously, the real Caitlyn is in there, but as we see, it's very hard for Cisco to kill her and actually cause her harm, because that is his best friend, and he can't think of hurting his best friend. That's just not who Cisco is, and he knows the Caitlyn that he loves is still in there, and I think it really does add a lot more weight to this overall story. The fact that Caitlyn won't kill, because the Caitlyn is still in there, even though Frost is, Frost, a part of Caitlyn is still inside her, and I think that definitely is going to be interesting to see where that's going to go, and especially now that we know who Savitar is, and that he knows a lot of what actually happens to Frost in the future. There definitely are a lot of plot holes with that. I don't exactly know what that all means, and I don't exactly know why, in general, he is so interested in helping Caitlyn, and I don't really understand why he would kill Iris either. Like, honestly, yes, there are a lot of plot holes, but it's a lot more interesting of a direction for the show to go than just pick Julian. I think definitely it's a more interesting direction. I think if the show has time, which they do have 3 episodes left, so, I mean, they do have a good amount of time, definitely, to get more into why future Barry does all this. Maybe they can try to, set this up more and have it make a lot more sense. I just don't really know where exactly this is going to go, and I guess it just makes me a little more intrigued than I initially was. But what I also really happy with this episode was Joe and Cecile. I thought when he actually did end things with Cecile, it was going to be permanent, and we weren't going to see her again. Flash has a tendency to do this a lot, and I'm glad they didn't do that here. Like, Joe actually went to Cecile and told her, look, I'm done with that relationship. I'm going to throw away the ring. He actually is willing to move on from his relationship, and I thought it was just a really well-done scene overall. I thought all of that was really great. Moving forward, I do want to see Joe and Cecile together, and I could really see them becoming a long-running couple. I really do want to see things go well for Joe. We've known that he's had a hard time moving on from Francine, but I think this is definitely the girl to help him do that, and I'm glad that we did get her back here, because I really like what we've gone with those two, and I feel like it's been really, they just haven't shown as much. Like, they've kind of been like the one plot that's sometimes there and sometimes not, and I'm glad to see that she's back. I really like what we got with her here, and I hope moving forward we do get more in terms of that relationship. Overall, guys, this episode was definitely a lot better than I initially thought it was going to be. I actually really enjoy this episode a lot more than some of the others that we've had. Sure, the reveal, I think, was definitely a long time coming. It was something that we should have gotten many episodes ago, but I'm just glad we finally have it, and it's definitely a lot more interesting of a reveal than I thought it was going to be. I don't know where we're going to go from here, but it makes me that more interested in the show. I am definitely going to give The Flash Season 3, Episode 20, I Know Who You Are, a 3.5 out of 5 or a B. Definitely one of the stronger episodes we've had in the second half of the season, which really has not been that great. This is definitely one of the better episodes. It was a lot better on the laughs. It was actually fun. There were some really fun moments within this one. It gave really all the characters something great to do, and in general, I'm very interested in seeing where this reveal is really going to go. I don't think this was the episode to reveal Savitar, but I feel like they had to eventually, and I'm glad that they did here. I was very happy with the way this is going to play out. It makes things a lot more interesting moving forward, but I just don't really know where it's going to go, but it makes me all the more interested in where the rest of the season is really going to go from here. So overall, guys, Mary the Flash, most guys thought this episode overall, loved your thoughts on it. I really did enjoy this episode, I have to say, and I will see you guys in my next video, which will be, I think, for the Americans. I'm not sure, but I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.